the title?
Artist and art historian.
Oh, okay, art historian, okay. Welcome very, very much to Conversations. It's a pleasure to welcome to the program John Hunter. He's an artist and an art historian, and he's also coming from the same town that I come from, Detroit, Michigan, and we're going to be talking about him and his work. He's a major artist, and we're going to be talking also about the city of Detroit, which we both come from. Me a little bit earlier than he, but and he's a major painter. And John, welcome so very, very much to Manhattan Network and to Conversations.
Well, thank you.
I like your work a lot. It's figurative and everything like that. But share with us, if you could, your background. Born and raised, I guess you were born in Detroit, as was I, but please, your own background, born and raised in Detroit, I guess, huh?
Okay.
Yeah.
Born in Detroit in 1942, in the middle of the Second World War.
Yeah.
My father was in the Army, and my mother was a secretary. She worked for the Red Cross, and then she worked for the Internal Revenue.
Right.
When my father came out of the Army, he went to work at Chrysler Corporation in a factory at the old DeSoto automobile company.
Was he on the line, or was
Yes, he was.
Yeah,
he started on the line.
Yeah.
And he worked over the decades up to the position of plant manager.
Wow.
At the Jefferson Assembly Plant, also for Chrysler.
Was that in the Detroit area or out?
All in Detroit.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
all
Jefferson.
in Detroit. Yes.
Was that on the east side? Or?
That the Jefferson plant's on the east side.
Yeah.
The DeSoto plant's on the west side.
Yeah, I was on the west side, out Grand River and that sort of thing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So my parents only had one child, me.
So boy,
so
they really hit the jackpot with you, don't you think?
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
One child. We lived in what's now known as the Midtown area of Detroit, which is just a few blocks away from the school that I eventually went to, Wayne State University, and also the Cultural Center, where I was employed at the Detroit Institute of Arts.
Help me. You're an artist. And you're much more involved. I got a lot of art friends and everything, but the Detroit Institute of Art is a major institution, is it not? Particularly the things from Mexico and so forth.
It is a major, comprehensive art institution, not as large, of course, as the Metropolitan here in New York City.
Right, no.
But the collection is really one of the best in the country.
Thank you, yes.
With, and as I say, it's comprehensive. It covers virtually all continents and most major developments on those continents. It's a fabulous collection. Some of the highlights of the collection, though, are the murals that the Mexican artist Diego Rivera painted in 1931, 1932 in the museum on the walls of what was formerly known as the Garden Court and now is known as the Rivera Court because of these incredible murals that he created that detail the automobile industry of Detroit.
Which was another big feature of Detroit. Detroit is associated with it. Yeah.
Detroit was then the Motor City, or called the Motor City, because of the automobile industry.
Sure.
While there's still a few automobile plants and the companies are still headquartered in and around Detroit, that is the three major American companies, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, or Fiat Chrysler as it's called now. Detroit is no longer completely dependent upon automobile industry. I think
everything's gone global, or sort of.
Well, yes, automobile industry has gone global, but Detroit has, to a certain extent, begun to diversify. Medical care has become a major industry in Detroit with several large, extensive hospitals. It's also become a center for arts, for creative artists who are moving to Detroit apparently in droves because Detroit offers a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurship.
Yeah, they had a very, very bad go of it there for a while, and it just made a really attractive place for the entrepreneurial spirit to come and build from the ground up. Right. And I think it's taken off. Right. In a recovery that's pretty amazing, and we want to talk about it, but if that's the case. I understand.
Yes.
Not been there for a while, but I would like to go.
Well, the things that have happened in Detroit over the last several years since the Detroit went into bankruptcy.
Yes, that's right.
The developments over the last several years have been really phenomenal. Lots of new construction, lots of new housing, and as I said, and actually a movement of population back to the city after
downtown
after decades of decline.
Wayne is sort of up
Midtown.
Woodward Avenue was the
Woodward
major
Avenue
drag,
is the main
right?
stride,
Yeah.
the main sort of street through the city.
Yeah.
And Wayne State is in the Midtown area, about 2 or 3 miles from downtown Detroit.
Right.
Downtown Detroit is on the river. Detroit is on a river.
Yeah, Tiger Stadium was down there. The Detroit Tigers was the
The
baseball
old
team.
Tiger Stadium, which was
it?
demolished.
Oh, is it really? I used to go there with the
Right.
grade
There's no longer
when I was 8
there's
years
no longer a
old.
Tiger Stadium.
Oh, shucks.
But there's a new
okay.
stadium, Comerica Stadium.
Oh, where is that?
In the downtown area.
Is it really?
Yeah.
A new
There's
baseball.
a new baseball park, a new...
There's still the Detroit Tigers?
Yes, there's still the Detroit Tigers.
Way to
A
go.
new stadium for the Lions, the football team.
Same
downtown.
stadium? Same stadium?
No,
for
different
both?
stadium, the Ford Field.
Yeah, okay.
And then finally, the basketball team, the Pistons, have moved downtown.
Automobile.
And the hockey team is downtown.
Red Wings.
The Red Wings, yes. The Pistons and the Red Wings.
And there's an Olympic Stadium.
Olympia is gone.
That was Joe Louis. Joe Louis was a heavyweight boxing champion from Detroit.
Right.
That's a major event.
Olympia was a major venue for sports.
They had a place on Grand River.
That was demolished
There
also.
was a street, Grand River?
Right.
Yeah.
That's gone.
I'm recalling.
And
but
now there are 2 new facilities for basketball and hockey.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all of that. Yeah. I'm anxious.
The city is changing.
Yeah. Well, I guess the world is changing, and also they got all these new throughways. I guess that's all over the world. They got throughways all over the world now that everything's changed and is adapted to the automobile. But it's a great town. I really like Detroit. That's where I have my roots as well. You know, you do too.
Right.
I was out Grand River Avenue. You know, we were talking old time stuff about that. But did you have an interest in art right from the beginning? What was the family setting like? Were you there? Were you encouraged?
Well, as I said, I was an only child, and my parents decided that they would not send me to the local public school.
What did they do?
They sent me to Catholic school. Now, neither of them were Catholics.
Why Catholic
but
school?
They decided that I would get a better education at a Catholic school than at the local public school.
That's
so,
interesting, yeah.
For the first 4 years of my schooling, my mother and I would ride a streetcar downtown.
Yes.
And then I would get off, and then she would continue on the streetcar because she worked downtown, and I would transfer to another streetcar to go to my school. And I did that at a Catholic school called Sacred Heart from grades 1 to 4. And then we moved from our location in the Midtown area to further out on the east side of Detroit.
East side. Yeah.
And then I attended a second Catholic school, grades 5 through 8, St. Catherine. And by that time, since I had, in order to stay in Catholic school, I had to convert to Catholicism. I was baptized Catholic. But I decided that in the 8th grade I'd had enough of Catholicism and I had enough of Catholic school. And I told my parents I wanted to go to public school and I wanted to go to Cass Tech.
Cass Tech, that's a Cass Technical.
Cass Technical High School, which was a big, huge,
what street is
multidisciplinary school.
Werner's Ginger
No,
Ale?
it's on 2nd Avenue.
2nd Avenue. Okay,
But again, that school that I went to was demolished.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And a new school was built.
A lot. Cass
adjacent.
Cass Tech was a major school.
It was a major school, yes.
Yeah. Technical,
and kids from all over the city could attend Cass Tech.
Yeah.
It was not a neighborhood or district school.
No.
It was open to all kids.
And that's where you went?
And that's where I went, and that's where I graduated. I loved Cass Tech.
What were you doing there? You're 12, 13, 14 years old?
I was in the science curriculum.
Yeah, science, okay.
From From 14 to 18.
Okay, yeah.
Or 16, no,
what
excuse
was
me,
the
16
family
to 18.
setting like? Was it encouraging
14,
of learning and all that sort of thing? And,
Well, here's the
you
thing.
are a major artist.
Well, here's the thing. Your question before was, have I always been interested in art? I always had an ability in art, but it was never encouraged or discouraged. And my parents, being African American, were very practical. This is back in, I was attending school in the late 40s.
And it was terrible.
1943. Our
Horrible.
neighborhood was
Horrible.
affected by it.
Yeah.
The neighborhood that we lived in.
Yeah.
My parents were very practical. They, in addition to sending me to a Catholic school so to get a better education, they wanted me to be able to do something that would be possible for a young African American male to do, because not everything was open to African Americans during that period of time.
I guess so.
So they emphasized learning something practical. And
tool and die.
And well, in my way of thinking, at Cass, I was in the science curriculum.
Yeah, right.
So when I went to the university,
Yeah.
I continued in science, and I decided that I was going to be a biology major.
Really?
And I was going to teach biology in high school
I can
or
see where
something like that.
I could be interested in that. Yeah, it's really fascinating.
So during all that time, you know, my art interest
sort of
didn't develop.
Well, maybe
it didn't develop. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Here's the thing. Right.
In college, in my first 2 years of college, I decided science was not for me. I was not going to be a biology teacher. This was not where my interests lay. And what I really wanted to do was to practice architecture. But Wayne State, where I went to college, didn't have an architecture school.
They didn't have architecture?
Wayne has never had an architecture school.
They don't
even
yet?
today.
They don't?
They do not have.
What would be the reason that they would not have that, I wonder?
The main architecture school in Detroit is at the University of Detroit, which is a Catholic university in Detroit.
That's out Oakland or something? Or
out Livernois. Livernois in 6
That's
Mile.
where all the used car places are.
Once upon a time.
They used to have one after another selling used cars because it was the center of the auto industry.
Once upon a time, yes.
Once upon a time was my time, unfortunately.
So since I was at Wayne, but I couldn't practice art, I couldn't study architecture, I decided that art would be the next best thing for me.
Well, they're very close.
And so I went into the art department halfway through my undergraduate years and found a wonderful teacher at Wayne by the name of Robert Wilbert. He taught painting at Wayne State in the art department. And he really encouraged me. I must say, he saw something in my work.
That's important, isn't it?
It is absolutely important. He saw something in my work that I guess he liked. Yeah. And he encouraged me to put my heart and soul into it. So that's when my artistic side began to develop.
Wonderful,
And fast forward, a period of working in an architectural firm as a draftsman after graduating. Period in the Army for 3 years, including Vietnam.
I have to, because reporting for duty, sir, you were an officer in the United States Army.
Right, I was an officer in Vietnam.
What Lou Costello would call a buck private. Reporting for duty, sir.
I was only a lieutenant, though. Only a lieutenant. But anyway,
you went to officers' candidates.
I went to officers'
They wanted me to go there too. When I was in it Korea time. You were in it Vietnam.
Vietnam.
Yeah,
Vietnam
a little bit different. Yeah, right. Yeah.
But fast forward through that. We can come back to that if you wish. After getting out of the Army and going back to...
Did you ship over? Did you
I was in Vietnam for a year.
Did you re-enlist?
No. 3 years and out.
3 years and out, you were?
Yeah.
And you became a lieutenant?
Right.
You were an officer and a gentleman?
If you say so.
Well, I mean, that's what it says right there.
I was an officer.
It says officer and gentleman. You got to be a gentleman if you're an officer.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's what they teach, don't they? Yeah.
I guess.
They didn't bother teaching us anything. I was just a buck private. They just said, do what you're told, you know.
Yeah.
I was a terrible soldier, but I kept getting what they call. Did you ever get an Article 15?
No.
Did you know what an Article 15 is?
Yes, of course.
Article 15 was some major thing, like you did something wrong, or you did something, and I used to get them with alarming regularity, because I kept trying to explain to the sergeants we could do things democratically, and I was a buck private. They don't want to hear that in the Army.
Well, as an officer,
Get back in the ranks, you little bear. You know.
As an officer, you're not going to speak up like that.
No, an officer is a gentleman.
An officer knows his place.
But I used to try and explain to the sergeant
Yes,
that we could do things democratically, but they didn't want to listen. I noticed.
You could do that as a private.
Yeah,
but not as an officer.
But you don't do it without some recourse from them, because they try to say what
you'll get an Article 15.
So right. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to go into it because it's kind of grim, you know. Yeah. Because in those awful hours and everything. Yeah. So did you ever have to do KP?
Of course.
Do you know what a sink trap is?
Yes.
People in the Army, it's a terrible thing about they have to feed these people all the time, and all this involved with the sink trap or the KP. I had that one time, and I had to do it again. I cried, and I was a grown man, and I cried when I had to go on that again. It's like some slavery thing. I'm sorry, but I was not a very good soldier. I mean, I came out of buck private, you know. And everything. But anyway, but you are an officer and a gentleman.
Right.
And you pulled that off. That's wonderful. What was the family setting like? They were encouraging you intellectually and so forth? Were you talking about politics and intellectual things and everything around the dinner table and all that?
Not around the dinner table, but politics was a large topic in my family.
Did they have a good view for Mr. Roosevelt?
Yes.
Mr. Roosevelt, I think, was a major figure in changing America, don't you? Or do you? Or what do you think?
Well, I think from the perspective of African Americans,
the Depression and all.
From the perspective of African Americans, he certainly seemed to have done things that helped, not hurt African Americans for the most part.
Yeah.
So yes, he was an idol, and the Democrats were idols of my family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there was a lot of talk about both Democrats and Democratic politicians in my family.
Did you get involved in Democratic politics?
No.
No, you didn't get involved in the politics day to day or anything like that, just as a thing. So, well, that's an interesting thing. And then you picked it up and you did that, and you were in the Army for 3 years, you said.
3 years.
That's all. That's pretty quick, really.
Not when you're doing it.
Did you get an honorable discharge?
Yes.
Congratulations. That's really good. That's a lot of my friends didn't ever get that honorable discharge, because of they called it high jinks, but it was fun, when your hearts are young and gay and everything, but joyful, But I didn't like the Army. I didn't. I used to. No, I don't want to go into that because it's kind of grim. Because I kept getting in trouble for telling people we should do things democratically. Okay, never mind. We're talking about you, not me. I was in the Army before you, 10 years or so before you. It was a different situation. But anyway, so and then you did, did you go to Cranbrook is another, I think, of Detroit, out toward Bloomfield Hills. There's a place called Cranbrook, which is a major cultural center and art, right, as well?
Right.
Are they linked with the Detroit Institute of Art?
No.
The Detroit Institute of Art is right next to Wayne.
Yes.
The university is there, right? And
very close.
And you were there at the Institute of Art for a while. You were engaged there, employed or something there, right?
Right. But we need to fill in a period of time in order to figure out how we got from one thing to the other thing.
Yeah.
So after I came out of the Army, and worked again in an architectural office, I decided to go back to school and get a master's degree in painting at Wayne State University. Again, with my favorite instructor, Robert Wilbert.
Okay.
And so I spent a couple of years studying painting as a graduate student with him. And yes, he continued to encourage me.
And you do, it's figurative.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And he was, unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago.
Sorry.
He was a figurative painter, a realist. I mean, he painted things that you could see and understand.
Yeah, right.
And a fabulous painter. He was just a great instructor also.
I think you are too,
really great teacher.
What did your mother think of that? Did she think you were a good painter?
Unfortunately, my mother didn't get to see me in my current state
she passed
as an artist, yes.
Yeah.
So I finished my graduate degree in painting, and it was at that point that a friend of mine said that the Detroit Institute of Arts, the great art museum in Detroit.
It is a great museum, yeah, it is.
He thought that the education department might be looking for someone like me, that is a person with an art background, to work in the museum and help the public.
Right.
So actually,
it's a natural for you.
An interview was arranged with the head of the art department, the education department, excuse me, and she decided to hire me. And
she had a good vision. She had a good selective process. Yeah.
From my perspective, yes.
I would think so.
From my perspective,
yeah.
But I was the only artist, a person with an art background in this department of women, all of whom had art history backgrounds.
I don't understand women. I don't. What she was. What?
There were, I think, 4 or 5 women in the education department who ran the various education programs of the museum.
I see.
So it was it was an all-woman department, and I was the only man brought into the department. They were all white, and I was the only black in the department.
Great.
In fact, the first black hired at the Detroit Institute of Art on what was called the professional staff. That is,
you could make a movie out of that.
Yeah. In any case, there were blacks in the museum, but they worked as guards. They worked in the behind the scenes areas of the museum as secretaries and cleaning staff and so forth.
And they had all that stupid race stuff going on in Detroit, hadn't they? There was awful things in the 40s and that. It was terrible.
Detroit was a very racist city, and to some extent it still is.
Yeah, all right. That's a real, yeah.
So I was hired in the education department with an art background, and my perspective on the things in the museum was very different from the perspective of the art historians, the women in the department.
Yeah.
Because I would look at the objects in the museum in terms of what the artist may have been thinking about to create them, what the artist was trying to accomplish by creating these things. And so I use that approach as a way to interact with the public.
Isn't that generally the way people are?
People
don't think that way?
Art historians approach it from history.
Oh.
The artist lived during this time. He lived in this country.
Yeah.
He studied with this
movement or something.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
The art historians approach it from the discipline of history.
Yeah.
I approached it from the discipline of the creative artist. So there were two really different approaches to how you might go about explaining something to the people to come to visit the museum.
Right.
Well, it happened. All of this happened right in the middle of the 1970s, and there was the great oil crisis, and the art museum, being at that time a department of the city of Detroit, was affected by the sudden and dramatic economic downturn of the city.
Yeah.
Because of
they had to do bankruptcy.
Because of this is long before the bankruptcy. This is the oil crisis.
Yes, right.
And as a result,
that was affecting the whole world. Yeah,
it affected the automobile industry tremendously, which was the basis for Detroit.
Yeah.
And so the city of Detroit, having less revenue coming in to pay its staff, decided to lay off lots of people, including all of us in the education department at the museum.
Oh, boy.
And so I saw that as an opportunity to go back to school again.
Okay. Good for you.
And I decided, after having worked in among these wonderful women who were art historians to study art history.
Good.
Because
There's a lot of it.
I wanted to know their approach to looking at art. So I went to the University of Michigan.
At Ann Arbor.
In Ann Arbor.
That's my family's all been Ann Arbor.
And enrolled in their graduate program in art history. And 4 years later, I completed my studies with almost in the PhD program.
You got a doctorate degree.
You're a
PhD.
Then I went to Italy.
You're a PhD. You're a doctor. Yeah.
Went to Italy for 3 years to work on my dissertation.
What was that on?
Studied in Rome. It was on a little-known 16th century Italian artist by the name of Siciolante da Sermoneta. And
was he any good at all?
Well, I think he was good.
I'm making a joke in a sense, but art is such a wonderful thing, and artists are so wonderful, aren't they?
I mean, most art historians, especially Italian Renaissance art historians, would consider him a second-rate artist. I mean, he's not in the ranks of Michelangelo and Leonardo and Raphael, who were, to some extent, his contemporaries.
Yeah, how do we account for those kind of things? But go ahead,
because he wasn't as original, you might say, or he wasn't as imaginative or creative, but he was a damn good artist because he, unlike most artists living in Rome at the time, in the 16th century, they would work in Rome for a period of time and then have to go work someplace else. He worked his entire career.
It was like a job.
Right. But he worked his entire career in Rome because he managed to move from one aristocratic family to another, from one
patron,
high cleric in the church to another. And he spent his whole career creating art in Rome for the aristocracy of Rome.
That's a person that you took particular interest in.
I took interest in him.
How did you happen to select him? There were so many you could have. If I'm in a sense, I'm just thinking as an amateur outside the realm.
It was really very simple.
Yeah, what?
I wanted to study in Rome.
That's a good. That's practical.
I wanted to work. I wanted to work on my dissertation in Rome.
Yeah.
And I was thumbing through books, looking at various artists' work, and I came upon him, and I thought, oh, this looks interesting. And it was interesting. He was just a fabulous topic for me to study because so much of his work is in Rome.
Yeah.
The archives in Rome are loaded with material.
Yeah, I should think,
on him.
On him, as well as a whole bunch of others.
As well as a whole bunch of others, but I found a lot of material that had never been published before about him in the archives. And so I spent 3 years there researching and writing my dissertation. And when I came out, I got a job teaching. When I came out of school with my PhD, I got a job teaching
at Ann Arbor, then.
In Ann Arbor. I got a job teaching in Cleveland, Ohio.
Teaching painting or
teaching
art history?
Art history. In the art department of Cleveland State University.
How are the arts stacking up in terms of the overall educational thrust of the country? Are the arts being given short shrift? Are they being supported? The arts in general, as opposed to, let's say, business and other kinds of things, do you think?
Well,
or let's say the educational process, but in the spirit of the moment or the spirit of the time. Are we paying enough attention to the arts and so forth, or not?
There are great art schools all over the country.
There are.
I mean, right here in New York City, you have several really good art schools.
I know an awful lot of artists.
And you also have lots of good programs in the arts, especially, again, in New York City, in theater, in dance, in creative writing. I mean, almost every art area that you can think of, in addition to the visual arts. And in visual arts, we'd also have to include television and movie making or filmmaking. There are great schools and great places to study.
I think there's a great future for that that's yet to be discovered.
Well,
the filmmaking. I mean, or multimedia.
But are the arts supported? That's another question. You know, I think certainly people go to movies. They spend enormous sums of money on movies. People watch television. people go to theater. Broadway
They just had the Tonys the other day.
and Broadway has had one of the best years.
What's that place where the Tony is done? They had an auditorium that was on the television.
Radio
it was
City
huge.
Music Hall.
It was huge.
It was Radio
Is
City
that Radio City
yeah,
Music
Radio
Hall?
City Music
My
Hall.
God, it looked like something out of
Yeah, it is
Nero's
gigantic.
Rome or
No,
something.
it really is gigantic.
Yeah. And God bless them all, the people that are into the theater and the arts and
But
everything. Yeah.
I have, so I think
Yeah.
generally, in answer to your question,
Yeah.
generally I think the arts are supported in terms of educational opportunities and public participation. However, when it comes to the visual arts, you have a very different situation. You have a lot of artists, but only a few really are supported and can make a living as visual artists.
That's interesting. How many skill sets are there that way? It just made me think a way that it's supported. Teachers are important. Some teachers are really good. I don't know, how do we discern what is to be supported by the citizenry at large, or the enlightened citizenry at large, about what things are we going to encourage in terms of the development of the society writ large?
Well, we're a society that is capitalist.
It's
and
inordinately so, do you think? Or
pretty much so.
Yeah.
And
materialistic.
And if it makes money, people, it's going to be supported.
That seems to be the major criteria.
And so the main mechanism for artists to make money is through the gallery system. Yeah. That is, private galleries that sell art.
Yeah.
But private galleries are capitalistic. They are in the business of making money. And if your art doesn't sell, or if there's no market for it, then you're not going to make a living as an artist. Is that true
for any other vocation, like, like carpentry or anything? I mean, the market is what motivates the whole society in a certain, more inordinately.
Well, this is how our society functions. Exactly. Right. It functions in a market economy in a capitalist system. And that's the way it works. But your question concerned the support for the arts.
Or the historical development and the trends there.
If you have good artists who are making good art, but they're not able to manage in the market system, then what? Then they end up, flipping burgers at some place.
There's a lot of that lament among the artists. I mean, where does practicality, the priorities for the society at large, because you've got political considerations, you've got economic considerations, you've got practical considerations, you've got traffic things, you've got all kinds of things like that, governmental and oversight, things like that. What are the major priorities by which a society is given an identity in that? Seems to me the arts should really have a major role in terms of setting the spirit of the zeitgeist or something like that.
But so
you know what I'm trying to say, or what I'm trying to find out what the reality is or could become. Maybe.
Well, if I might,
please.
let me turn back to my own situation.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
so I live in New York.
Yeah.
And New York is where I resumed my interest in making paintings.
Congratulations.
But let's consider the economics of it.
You could have gone out and flipped hamburgers.
Well, I had retired from teaching, retired from the university. Yeah. I could have,
gotten a job
done any number of things, but I decided I wanted to return to painting.
Good.
But I didn't need to depend on the market, nor on the capitalist system,
because you had enough.
Because I have my retirement. I have my pension.
Would it be good if everybody was in that kind of a status?
Well, okay.
Security, that's a secure situation to be in. Economic security should be the birthright of everybody.
Okay. So
can it ever be like that?
I doubt it.
Okay.
So the reason I'm coming back,
sad.
reason I'm coming back to that is because
if it could be, it would be a good thing.
If it could be,
Yeah.
but that's not in this lifetime in this world that we live in.
Well, maybe or maybe not. But go ahead. That's another issue.
So,
yeah.
The reason I wanted to bring us back to that point is I brought some very short videos
Good. You did
to show you
Okay, yeah.
how and where
Yeah.
I paint.
Yeah, right.
So if maybe
you live one place, you have a studio
yes, I live one place and I have a studio.
Where is the studio?
The studio's in Upper Manhattan in
It's
Washington
in Manhattan.
Heights.
It's in Manhattan, Washington Heights.
Right.
Now,
So
what did you going to show a little clip or something?
Yeah, if we could see, there are 3 short videos.
Yeah.
Maybe if we could, whichever one is queued up to be shown.
So, Joseanne, can you get to one of the videos there? With short. Here we go. Take it away, Hollywood. No, take it away. Is that what she wants? What she's just trying to get it. So.
Okay. Well, if it comes
Is it going now? Is it working? Trying to get a video. You can't see the screen.
Is there a play button?
Is there?
Okay.
What did she signal? That she's got it, maybe?
Well, she's searching for it, I guess.
Oh, searching, yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, so
Yeah.
these little videos are I made in the studio.
Yeah.
To
short little piece.
very short.
Yeah.
To show you the workspace, which because I am retired and don't need to sell my work necessarily,
I think that's great.
I can afford to maintain a studio.
Would it be good if everybody was in that position?
Well, of course. But
if everybody was in a secure position.
If everyone was, but that's not the way it works.
That's not the way it has worked.
That's not the way it has worked.
But if it could become that.
If it could.
That's something that we should all be inspired to.
There are places in the world where, yes, this is possible. Here's one of the videos.
Here you go. Oh, look at that.
Okay,
Yeah,
so this is in the portion of my studio where
this is a painting that I completed again based on photographs that I took in West Africa, particularly in a village in the country of Togo. So this is a recently completed painting, and then opposite it is a painting that I did a couple of years ago. It's based on the idea of the European conquest of African and Central American, South American countries. So it's about the conflict between races, between civilizations.
So
where are these? Where are these in your own were they displayed in a gallery anywhere?
No, that's in my studio.
In your studio, I see. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
The studio. The studio has 2 parts.
Yeah, okay.
One part where I work, and
is it big? Is it big?
Well, it's big enough for me to work in.
Yeah.
It's not a loft space.
Oh, not a loft space.
No, it's not a loft space.
But it's good to have a space like that where you can go. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is space big enough for me to work. If you can play the next one, we can see where I actually work.
Okay,
there are 2
good.
spaces.
Yeah, right.
One is the workspace, and one is a space where I can actually place the paintings so that my friends, basically, who want to see what I'm doing, can come and have a look.
Have you been able to do shows in that? Or
Yeah, I open my studio. So this is the workspace.
Oh, look at there! There you go.
And there's a little narrative that accompanies this.
Okay, let's see it.
Okay.
Let's see what it says.
This is my studio. This is where I work.
Good. Look.
These are some of the paintings that I'm currently working on. They're based on photographs that I took last summer in West Africa, in the 3 countries of Ghana, Togo, and Benin. And these are works that I'm preparing for a group exhibition next year that will take place in Kingston, New York.
Kingston, yeah.
It was organized by a friend of mine who is a fellow Detroiter.
Detroit.
So there are new paintings that I'm working on here, and there are also some older paintings that I store in this space.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you work outside. How do you do that?
Sometimes I work very big,
Yeah.
and sometimes I work on a smaller scale.
This friend of mine, she
All
had
my paintings presently
that came
deal
out
with
in
blacks,
space,
black
physically,
people,
yeah.
African Americans.
Mixed painting and sculpture.
This is my subject matter.
Oh gosh, that's beautiful. Really good work, huh? Oh, well, that's really good. Now, do you get shows? How does it go? You do this work.
I basically have shown
Yeah.
shown my work in my studio.
In your studio.
Yeah,
You haven't had a show.
No, I've not had a show. I've had paintings in various places.
Yeah.
But I've never had a show devoted to me or this upcoming show, which will be in Kingston,
Oh, you
is
have
a group show.
A group show, yeah.
Right. Now,
Okay.
I will be one of the 6 or 7 people in that show showing some of these paintings that I just showed you in the
And
video.
they'll be showing their own work.
Exactly.
And everything. And will it be of a certain kind of work?
Apparently, all the artists
Open
do
call.
very different things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, artists have a tendency
Yeah.
to be very well
Right.
interested in what they do,
Of
and
course.
not
Yes.
not particularly group oriented. Yeah.
But my friend who's
Yeah.
organizing
Yeah,
this, I mean, he also does figurative work.
Yeah.
And sometimes large scale, sometimes small scale.
Right.
But I think the other artists that he's decided to include do other kinds of things. So it's not going. I don't think it's all going to be a figurative show. I don't really know because I don't really know the other artists who are included besides the one who's organizing it.
But it must be wonderful to have such a skill set at your fingertips or at your brush tip.
Well,
or whatever
it's
the
very
term is.
It's very
to
gratifying
have
to
that
have
capability. Yeah.
this
Yeah. God-given grace
skill.
or something. Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like we're running out of time.
No.
No?
We
Or
still
what?
got a good 15.
Oh, you want to
minutes.
run? We're going to run the last
We got
last
another
video.
clip.
Okay,
Is that
here.
what you're saying?
Yeah.
okay.
And in this room, there are also
Okay,
more
yeah, by all
paintings
means.
that have been completed in recent times.
They're really outstanding.
They're waiting
work, yeah.
to be put on the wall. I haven't yet decided if all of these paintings will end up displayed or not. So they're sitting in here so that I can see how they look and how I feel about them at the point at which I will put them up so they can be viewed.
So
I'm really
those are all
impressed.
three- all
It's
three
very
clips.
neat. It's very neat.
I'm a very
Everything
tidy
is
person.
neat.
I'm a very tidy.
Yeah, because
Tidy.
I've got artists who paint all over the floor and everything like that.
Well-
but that place looks like it's been had the best janitorial services ever.
Well,
It's neat like a pin.
I don't know if you noticed, but on the side of the studio where I work, I have a tarp on the floor
Oh, thank
to
goodness.
protect the floor. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's a hardwood floor, so I don't want to mess that
Well,
up.
there's a certain kind of personality, isn't it? You care about things like
I'm a
that.
neatnik.
Yeah, right. That's good. Yeah, like I'm not. But that was
I
very.
learned that in the Army.
Yes, right. You learned that at
I did.
At officers training school.
Well,
I, on the other hand, was just a poor old buck private, and I didn't take the advantages of all of that, you know. Also, I couldn't do that if I tried my damnedest. I've tried sometimes to do something, but it's always just disastrous.
well, we all
You
have
it's a
we
great
all have
talent.
things that
Yeah.
we can do,
Yeah.
and you know, you very likely do things that I can't do. So that's the way it is.
Well, yeah,
Well-
there's a lot of variety and everything like that. But the arts that's really good. Now, are you looking to have a? What about? Is there? You're going to have a thing in Kingston? Say it again. You're going to have a show.
It's
now.
a group show.
It's going to be
It's
when?
a group show.
When?
Well, presumably it's going to be spring of next year.
spring of next year.
Yeah,
Okay,
in Kingston. So the paintings, some of the paintings you saw in my workspace are paintings.
What's the venue there in Kingston?
It's a gallery. It's a commercial gallery.
A commercial gallery in Kingston.
In
Kingston. I know Kingston.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's upstate.
Sure.
Poughkeepsie and so
well,
forth.
it's across the river.
Yeah.
Across the river, actually, from Rhinebeck.
Yeah, Rhinebeck. I know that. I used to be at New Paltz.
Yeah.
You're in that area. That's in that area, upstate New York.
It's further north than New Paltz.
Rosendale?
It's past Rosendale.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that part.
That's my territory. I used to be up there. I used to live up there. It was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I told you.
It's lovely. Hudson Valley. I mean, there's a whole
Hudson
school. Was a school of painting based in the Hudson Valley called the Hudson Valley School.
Absolutely.
And Detroit Museum has an enormous collection of paintings by the Hudson Valley School.
Who is that really? Is that true? Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a particular person emerged out of that? Was 19th century or what? Or when?
Right.
Or,
it was late 19th century.
Was there anyone in particular that was noted? Like
right. And there was Fred. I'm blanking on his name at the moment.
No.
Anyway, he built an incredible house upstate, further north than Rhinebeck, but overlooking the Hudson Valley and with a view of the Catskills.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Ilana, or something like that is the name of the place, and his name I'm blanking on the name. Anyway, he was one of the very prominent artists of the Hudson River School.
That place, that area, I don't know. Maybe the planet is such a beautiful place, but that place upstate New York, around there,
it's
like
gorgeous.
Woodstock and all of that.
Yeah, it's really gorgeous.
It's unbelievably
it
gorgeous.
Is gorgeous.
I lived there in New Paltz.
Yeah.
I taught at the university for a while.
Yeah.
I think I may have told you the other night. I'm not sure we met the other night. And I was coming down one autumn when the lightfall was just it was just so gorgeous. And I had the dog and my son, I think, and we're in a car, and I'm driving down the highway, and it was the autumn when the leaves change, and the sun, the light was just so. It was so gorgeous that I literally, I think I was in the car, and I knew I was in the car and everything, but I went into an involuntary swoon at how gorgeous it was, and the car with me in it and everything. We went right off the road into the meadow because it was so gorgeous.
In a swoon.
And that was all to the interest of Mother Nature presented that scene. It was really gorgeous with the the world's such a beautiful place in many kind of ways and everything like that. Now, so that's really interesting. So are you taking new direction now, or what? How do you get an idea for what these? You have very, very interesting images. Do they come out of your life experience? Do they come out of your memory of things? How do you have a woman here, a man here? How do you decide what figurative things you're going to be presenting in terms of the subject matter that you got all the colors in the world. You can do all kinds of things. How do you go about? You got a blank page. You got a blank canvas. Is that what you do? Canvas? Yeah.
Oil on canvas.
Do you do a drawing?
Sometimes.
And fill it in?
Sometimes.
Or how does an artist do that to get the thing? Do you do it spur of the moment? Do you know ahead of time what you're going to want to have happen? Do you want the light fall and all those kind of things in your mind before you even address it at the beginning? Or does it develop as you're doing it? How does that work for a creative
Harold,
person
there's an
like
awful lot of
yourself?
questions there wrapped up there. Where do you? Okay, let me start.
Explain it to we who are just mere mortals who don't have the artistic oomph that somebody does have.
Here's the story.
Okay, do.
All right.
Go.
First of all,
yes.
I'm a figurative painter.
Okay,
that is, I paint things that
are real.
Real. They're recognizable.
It's not just colors.
Right. They're not what people term abstractions or non-representational painting. Non-representational painting means that the artist is interested in something that comes out of the process or the materials or whatever, but there's not necessarily any discernible, identifiable object visible. That's non-objective, or what is commonly called abstract painting. I'm a figurative or representational painter in that what I paint draws from visual experience, draws from what I see now or what I've seen in the past or what I imagine, but all based on actual objects that if I paint it, you would probably recognize it as being what it is that I painted. So when I began working in my studio after coming to New York, by the way, I have to quickly insert that part in. I came to New York because I met the man who I eventually married, who lived in New York, and we live on the Upper West Side in Manhattan. The reason why I wanted to mention him was because he really encouraged me in two ways.
Is he an art?
No, he is a psychologist.
Okay,
He's
he's
a psychologist and a therapist, which may have some bearing here. He encouraged me in two ways. The first is that he introduced me to a friend of his who was taking art classes at the Art Students League here in New York City.
Art Student League's a good place.
And this friend encouraged me to come to the Art Students League and take a class. And
how long ago was that?
That was when I came to New York in 2004.
That's quite a little while ago,
And that's what stimulated me to return to art.
Good. They have that for theater people do.
My husband then spurred that on by introducing me to this friend who introduced me to the Art Students League. And
so you were reintroduced.
And my passion was reignited, you might say.
Reignited
after having been an art historian and taught all those years.
Yeah, I see.
So the second thing, though, is having established my studio, which you've seen in the little video clips, I thought about what did I want to paint. And I started with just looking at things, painting still life and landscapes and cityscapes and,
there's a lot of things you could paint.
These are the things I learned from Robert Wilbert, my teacher, in school, in college. But after a while, that didn't really seem to register for me. It wasn't personal enough. And so I did a series of paintings of my family. Based on photographs. Because my entire family, my parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, many cousins, they're all dead now. So I had a bunch of photographs of family members, and I began making paintings based on those photographs. And now we come back to my husband again. He pointed out that as an African American, he's Jewish, white. Why not pay some attention to African Americans as a subject? So that's what I decided to do. I decided, having painted my family, to expand that to just include African American people in all of their varieties and all of their different locations and places and periods of time as subject matter. So that that brought about a trip that we took, my husband and I, to West Africa this past summer.
Last summer.
To the countries of Ghana, Togo, and Benin, and I took 1,000 pictures of men and women in Africa, and with the idea that when I came back, I wanted to make paintings based on a lot of those photographs. And those are the paintings that were in one of the video clips that I will probably choose to be in this group show next year in Kingston. So, all the questions that you asked, for me, it was finding something that was personal and meaningful to me to choose as a subject. I wanted to paint representationally because that's how I like to paint. But I wanted it to be about African American people or about black people. Because Africans are not African American, they're African.
And you take great pleasure in what you're doing.
And I take great pleasure in it.
Congratulations, young man. I think that's a wonderful state that every human being should be in if we possibly can. That's a state of maximal engagement. That's wonderful,
marvelous. There's a whole another part to this, though, that your question didn't actually raise, but
maybe because I'm not able to articulate,
Well,
but I know I'm feeling.
but
It's really good.
Here's the question: what is the significance of doing this?
All right.
Apart from the pleasure that I get, or the pleasure that the few friends.
What
that
political influence
who
might
come
it
and see
have
the-
on the society, possibly? Or actually have effect upon the organization of society?
Quite possibly.
Right. You'd like to leave a mark.
I would like to leave them.
And a marker
I
for
would
others,
like to
too,
leave a
to
mark.
get a sense of
And
what the world's all about.
What is
good.
going on now, Harold,
Yeah.
which many people are now becoming more aware of, is media such as the New York Times has begun devoting a tremendous amount of coverage to African American creative types.
Have they?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Every week there are articles about painters and people in theater and people
Great.
in dance, writers, to an extent that's never occurred before.
Yeah.
And I feel I'm a part of that, even though I'm not in the New York Times.
Yeah.
And very
Well, you might be destined to be.
very unlikely, but
Yeah.
neither here nor there.
Yeah.
The point is this.
Yeah.
The point is this.
Yeah.
Black people have been creative throughout time.
Yeah?
But now they're getting recognition for what they're doing in mainstream media,
Mm-hmm.
and more are having the opportunity to pursue their creative instincts.
Oh, right, and be encouraged to do that, and the youth and so forth, and people coming up
Because-
should be encouraged to take that attitude toward life and the human condition.
When I took that step in college, when I began college in the early 1960s,
Uh-huh.
my parents thought
At
that
Wayne.
was crazy.
Was that at Wayne?
At Wayne State.
Wayne
My
State University is a
parents
great
thought
school.
that was
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah,
because
yeah.
what black person is going to have a successful life as an artist?
Right, you haven't got a chance, pal. What are you?
But
Yeah.
kids coming along today
Yeah.
can see people like them in the news,
Right.
in the newspaper,
Yeah.
on TV, in the museums, and they
Right.
can say, "Hey, I can do that."
Go, brother. I think that's great.
And-
That should be the attitude of everybody. Everybody should be like that.
Okay.
Just maximizing out, a great big giant paint in or whatever
Right.
it is and everything. But congratulations.
So there we are.
I think that's wonderful, wonderful. Keep doing it. Don't stop. Don't take don't tarry at all along on your pathward toward fulfilling your purpose here in universe, and I congratulate you enormously on it all. Wayne State University is part of that in Detroit, and it's really a pleasure talking to you, my brother.
Thank
I
you.
think it's the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Okay. Thank
Okay?
you, Harold. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much
Thank you for this
viewing.
opportunity.
It's your pleasure to have the percentage of this, the perception of all this gentleman's work, and it's really important. And the message he's carrying is one that could have wide influence individually and collectively on the human consciousness, and is to be encouraged. And we thank you very, very much for viewing. Please do tune in. We'll be coming back again, tomorrow on MNN. And thank you once again, John, very, very much for coming in and for such a very, 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 very well-led life that continues.
Thank you for the invitation.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for viewing.